Hi. Three important items to keep in mind as we're starting off this week. One, questions about governance issues in the United States. Two, will the United States continue to dominate the AI trade? And third, the rotation into value, is that sustainable? One of the big questions that really started on Friday, there was a federal appeals court that ruled that the Trump tariffs were not valid. Obviously, an administration has the ability to put in place tariffs, but the question is, does the administration have the ability to bypass Congress, which is what happened back in April. So we have that question that's come up. The question of Fed independence continues to come up. There was a lot more conversation last week with Trump trying to potentially fire one of the Federal Reserve governors, and then you have some questions that are coming up as it relates to Los Angeles, whether or not the Trump administration had the ability to pull in troops, and that the ruling there has been that that's a violation of the federal law. So it's a question of how things are being done as opposed to whether or not ultimately the administration has the ability to do some of the things they're trying to accomplish. But the market hates uncertainty, and so what that's raising is a lot of uncertainty and concerns about governance with the administration. So that's creating more of a risk-off type of environment, which is important. We also had last week, obviously we had NVIDIA that reported. The market was kind of tepid with NVIDIA's results. They were incredible. They've had amazing growth, but NVIDIA also has very stretched valuations. And over the weekend, you saw really strong results from Alibaba, and the stock responded exceptionally well. So the U.S. has really dominated the AI trade, and the U.S. is certainly well ahead of Europe and has been arguably a bit ahead of China. But now you're getting some questions based on valuations. Are some of these Chinese up-and-comers more attractive from an investment perspective? So we're seeing some capital inflows into China away from the U.S., and NVIDIA is now nearly 8% of the S&P 500, and many of these other really strong tech companies that have dominated the AI trade, such as Microsoft, also are very strong representatives of the index. So does this create a bit of a headwind as it relates to the indices in the U.S.? And I think that very well could be the case. We are seeing a bit of a rotation into value, which is encouraging. Whenever you get into sell-offs, you usually see the composition that looks one of two ways. You either see everything sell off, or you see a rotation start moving into other areas where valuations are more attractive and cheaper. And if we are in an environment where interest rates start coming down and the Fed starts cutting rates, then we could see a better rotation into value. And we have seen over the last 3 weeks, we've seen some value stocks that have really lagged start outperforming. And even if we look from a sector perspective, energy, for example, over last week was up 2.5%. Over the last 3 weeks, it's up about 2.8%. We saw financials up 0.75% last week. Over the last 3 weeks, up almost 2%. And what might surprise people is the best performer from a industry perspective last week was actually office REITs. So office REITs, which have been dead for a while, were up 4.5%, and over the last 3 weeks, they're up 6%. So it may be an environment as rates are coming down where dividend stocks are more attractive. Thank you so much.